there are people in our chat. We have a few people in chat already. We have Ignite, Inspire the Story. We have David Sadis. Hey, what's up, people?
Yeah, Ignite. That's my buddy Barker, my partner over at Absolute Tabletop.
Hey, what's up, Barker? There are people.
Oops. There we go. I had the stream going.
Okay, so 1 second. I have myself on playback there. All right, we are all good. So I'm here with my esteemed guest, Matt Click. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic.
Great.
Thank you so much for being on here. So the reason that we got together initially, right, is that you are helping me with Galder's Gazetteer.
Yes. Yeah. I think you contacted me earlier this year and I did some editing on some of the content. And now as you're trying to get the book over the finish line, we're doing some writing and development together, which has been really fun. So.
Yeah. Initially, I got you on just for some editing work to make sure that everything's really pristine when we get it out there. And now we're doing some adventure writing together. We got one pretty much done. We're gonna play test it and tinker with it, and then it's gonna be completely finished. And this other one we are in the process of doing, right?
Yeah. I just got the kind of first draft of this thing knocked together last week, so it's still pretty in a wet cement sort of stage at this point.
Yeah, but before we dive too much into that, I just want to give you a big congratulations on a very successful first day of your Kickstarter.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. We're kickstarting a supplement for the Mecha hack. It's called Mission Manual, and we're about to hit our funding goal here. In fact, I'll check it right now. We might hit the goal while we're on stream here, so that'll be exciting.
That would be incredible. I hope that happens. In fact, make sure to put the link in the description of this video.
Killer, awesome. Yeah, we're at 4,400 right now, so about $600 to go. But it's like a rules light mecha game. And if you're into like mecha or super robot, like Gundam, Transformers, Robotech, anything like that, it's a game that allows you to run that kind of sort of feel very quickly, very easily. And this is sort of an add-on for that. And you can also get the original book through the Kickstarter as well. So yeah, going pretty well so far.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. Like, I'm not particularly like into giant robots or whatever. That's not like, my little shtick. Right. But reading through the book, like I can definitely feel like playing that like as a convention, right? Like when like I run a lot of, 5th editions. If you go to like a big event, like you sort of want to bust something out that's a little bit different.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's like just perfect. That fills that niche of something I can like sit down and play throughout the session without having the burden of learning a whole new system.
It's a very popular con game, just because it is so quick to learn and explain to people, and it is familiar enough mechanics. If you're familiar with D&D and specifically 5th edition, it's familiar enough there where you can get rolling in really just a couple minutes, build your mech, choose your pilot, and go on a mission and blow a bunch of stuff up just in a couple minutes. So people love it for that aspect, or pickup games, one-shot sessions, things like that. People tell me all the time that if they have to cancel or reschedule their game, they'll run Mecha Hack instead as kind of a quick pickup game sort of thing. So it's great for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a partial tactical minis game with like a story on top of it, like a story on top.
That's totally what we were going for. Absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. Hey, Mike from Think DM is in the chat. What's up, dude?
Hey.
Did you read his blog, Think DM? Fantastic stuff.
Yep, I am familiar with that blog. Absolutely.
All right, so before we get he's doing our playtesting manager, but so before we get too far into the weeds, circling back around to adventure writing for Galder's Gazetteer. So when I first approached you with this second adventure, we already have one that's in the bag. It's like when we had an outline that was done by Jessica Ross.
Yeah,
so it had like a. Go ahead.
It was an outline that had the basic sort of skeleton of the adventure, and so it was basically 4 parts, and in each part there were some bulleted points of different encounter ideas, trap ideas, things that could potentially happen in the parts, and then there was an intro scene that was sort of describing like the city and the layout of the sort of overworld map. So going into it, I had a pretty good idea of like what the framework was going to be. And then from there, it was just kind of like building a little bit of cohesion between the different parts and putting a little meat on the bones of that skeleton that was provided. So the framework that was there was already really cool and had some kind of cool, unique ideas in there. So it came together pretty quick for me in terms of writing.
Do you want to try to walk through that real fast? I think I can have the framework pulled up, so we
Yeah.
can sort of see what you were handed and what we sort of came out with at the end.
Yeah. So the here, let me open it up here.
So I think I'm going to go ahead and try to share this screen over Zoom.
Okay. Be careful.
See if you never know. Like these things could blow up.
Yeah. Hey, there we go. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I started with here. And this is honestly kind of how all adventures sort of start. This is like, you don't go in and write the first scene of the adventure. Typically you kind of outline everything and you have your bullet points and your big ideas that you can then flesh out. So what I had to work with was a couple of templates, which if you're familiar with Galder's, the monster templates and the environment templates, very versatile tools that you can apply over different locations, different monsters. So we had a few of those. We had a couple of magic items down there, which I was then able to work into the adventure. And then below those, we had this opening scene, this kind of description of what's going on. You can see that we have like the main hook, group of children missing from this village or the city, Moonthread Basin. And then below that, we have what's actually happening here. So that's kind of like this is the stuff the players don't know. This is the stuff that they're going to find out over the course of the adventure. And then you can see below that, we have 1, Into the Woods, 2, The Elements of Elementals, 3, Quiet Hauntings. Those are the different scenes. Those are the different like parts of the adventure that then will all sort of come together to form the cohesive whole.
All right, so you want to go ahead and walk us through what was the sort of main plot here?
So the basic idea is that there's this city, Moonthread Basin, which is like really close to this enchanted forest called the Twilight Forest. It's called the Twilight Forest because it's really dense, and so it's constantly like dim, even in broad daylight. If you go in there, it'll kind of be dim and sort of twilit. And it has this very like magical, enchanted sort of feel. And it's because it's like, it's sort of connected to the Feywild. And so there are Fey creatures that are roaming around the woods, causing mischief, causing havoc. And they play tricks and pranks on people that enter the forest. And so it's one of those places where people are saying, don't go into the Twilight Forest. It's just not worth it. Like people go in there and they'll disappear for days at a time and then reappear with no memory of where they were, or like strange memories of dimensions that they visited that they don't quite understand. But things kind of get a little bit hairy when children go missing from Moonthread Basin. And the belief is that they went into the Twilight Forest to play and then went missing from there. So they disappeared, and people have gone in and looked for the children. They've sent in search parties, but the search parties have come up empty. They've been turned around and sent out of the woods, or they disappear themselves only to reappear days later. And so the people of Moonthread Basin are kind of at a loss. They're not really sure what to do. And that's where the adventurers come in. That's always like the linchpin, is like, you have to think, okay, why can't the city guards do this? Why can't anyone else in this? Why does it have to be the adventurers? And that's pretty well established here in this adventure, that it's just really not something that someone without like arcane knowledge is able to tackle. So the truth of the matter is that the children who went missing, they were basically like friends with the Fey creatures. They would play with the Fey creatures of the forest, and the Fey creatures would create things to aid in the play. They would give the children the magical ability to make whatever they wanted to imagine come to life. And with these powers, they sort of misused them, ended up getting lost across time and space, traveling through dimensions. They're sort of cast out into the various multiverse, the planes of the multiverse. And that's what the PCs kind of come to find out as they go into the woods here. So the basic idea is they show up in Moonthread Basin. The people are like, we need help. Here's the deal. They lead them to the Twilight Forest and then basically say, good luck. We hope that you have a better luck than we did.
All right, so
Um,
yeah, so pretty classic
yeah,
setup. There's a forest
yep,
that's getting
totally.
more and more out of control, and all of a sudden some kids have gone missing, and they're probably in the woods.
Super like classic setup for
Hmm.
a D&D adventure. Yep.
And I sort of like we go into it, it sort of has this feel of a sort of a dark and twisted fairy tale, which I kind of like.
Yeah, it very much has like a Brothers Grimm sort of feel. There's
Mhm.
almost like there's a hag that's mentioned in these bullet points, which um, I just kind of went crazy with because I love hags. They're one of my favorite creatures, and I really made the hag sort of central to the story.
Mhm.
And that's very much like a Hansel and Gretel kind of feel for sure.
Okay, so in the initial outline, we have the encounter of the hag who knows more than she's willing to say about the children.
Mm-hmm.
And then she agrees to lead the PCs to where the children are last seen in the forest, but she actually leads them to a gate.
Yeah.
So in the initial adventure, then the PCs go to one plane, a plane of ooze, right?
Yep. Yeah. They end up in the elemental plane of ooze. There's a mention of a fight with an elemental, and they find one of the kids who is trapped there. And they end up having to chase that kid into another gate, which leads them uh, into the part 3 there.
All right. And so part 3, when they go through the other gate, they are plane shifted back to the material plane, or so they think. Dun dun
Yes.
dun.
Yeah, they end up astral projecting in this initial concept here, and they have to sort of find their way back to their physical forms within the material plane. Along the way, potentially interacting with ghosts and spirits, and eventually they find that the oh yeah, I forgot about this part because I cut it out. That they ended up aging into adults. That's something that we might work back into the adventure. But in the initial idea, the kids, basically the wild magic and the different sort of extraplanar effects had led to the children aging and becoming adults within the forest, which sets up an interesting conflict for sure. Because then you're like, well, they're not really kids anymore, so they can kind of make decisions on their own if they want. But yeah, that is interesting. So. Then again, the hag is mentioned. The hag is kind of a reoccurring element here in the bullet points. And
Yeah,
then
either they make a deal or they can go back and confront the missing children. So you can
yes,
like
yeah,
lead the hag at the start. Okay, here's where the kids are. Where the kids are now grown ups.
yep, exactly. And then you have your final encounter here, potentially confronting these now adult magic users who have sort of power over the forest. And they can either sort of make a deal with these kids who are now adults, or they can try and lead them back to the city Moonthread Basin and sort of go from there.
All right, so this is what I gave you, and you sort of gave it a once over, right? We had a brief conversation about maybe cutting some things out, right?
Yes, yeah. Because the other important thing too is that we you mentioned that you wanted the adventures here to be one single sessions. They needed to work
Yes.
as one shots, and so um, it's difficult sometimes to do that with adventures, but you can sort of streamline things a little bit and create sort of a simple sort of thoroughfare through the adventure so that it can be played in like 4 hours, 5 hours max.
Hmm. So I remember that one thing that you we talked about cutting was this area in the middle, right? That you said
Yeah,
that when they go off into their astral bodies, it just sort of doesn't really do a whole lot to advance the story. It's just sort of like another, okay, we have a scene here before the end.
yes, yeah. And that was something that just like from a story standpoint just felt like it was a cool idea, but it definitely felt like it didn't add to, like you said, the overall sort of feel. And so what I ended up doing, and we could talk about this as we get into the sort of
Mhm.
rough draft here, but night hags specifically carry this thing called a heartstone, which allows them to become ethereal. It's what gives them their ability to sort of phase in and out of reality. And I had this idea of like, what if the kids stole that? And that's how they, ran into the woods. That's how they disappeared, is they had this heartstone from this hag. And so the hag wants the heartstone back. That's why she makes a deal with the adventurers. So there is a portion in the draft here where basically the players have to use this heartstone to become ethereal and find one of the kids who's trapped in the ethereal realm. So that sort of takes the place of the astral projecting portion of the adventure. And it's a little simpler, and it also allowed me to use one of my favorite monsters, the phase spider.
Yeah, I saw that in there,
which is very cool. So,
oh yeah, let's not hold everyone back. Let's go ahead and switch over to the written adventure.
cool.
So this is what you sent back to me, right?
Yes, yeah. This is my first draft. This is the wet cement draft, as I like to call it.
Oh, that's a nice phrase, because it's still you're still able to play around with things.
Exactly. It's not quite set yet, so you can mess around with it a little bit.
Oh, Rosanna says that was a great way of incorporating the monster lore with the night hag.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's one thing about just D&D in general, is that monsters will often have really cool plot hooks just sitting there waiting for you to use. Like night hags, they have this thing called a heartstone. If they lose it, they become desperate and have to get it back. You're like, that's a cool thing. That's a plot hook right there.
Okay. So I think we were also bound, something worth noting is that we were also bound by a couple of restrictions, right? Is when I got the Kickstarter, like I advertised this as a planes hopping adventure.
Yes,
so that has to happen at least at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, we also put the art orders in based on the outline.
Yes.
So there's also some things that we had to sort of abide by going through this.
Exactly.
And so let's go through this this adventure. And I like how you set it up. Like you give the little synopsis right here. The children missing, a surge of fake creatures plaguing travelers. The party goes into the woods and the plains beyond to uncover the truth of the disappearances, as well as strange interplanar activity. All right. So I would think maybe just for the DM's sake, we might actually make a note of like what that actually is.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about that outline, is that it has what's actually going on here. What's the truth here? And so what you could potentially do is include a section, even if it's a sidebar or breakout box or something here at the beginning, that's basically like, hey, DM, just so you know, going into this, here's what's actually happening. You know, these kids stole this night hag's heartstone, and now they're trapped in different planes, and you got to go get them back.
So maybe another paragraph there, sort of explaining it, like the what's actually going on paragraph might be helpful for the DM running through it.
And one of the most powerful tools in writing is brackets. Insert paragraph explaining truth to DM. Because what the brackets do is they immediately stand out to you. They're not something that happens in normal writing. And you can also do a Control F for brackets to see if you missed any in your draft. It makes it very, very easy.
Oh, snap. See, when I'm writing drafts, I normally just put like a bunch of capital X's in a row, but that makes more sense to search for brackets.
Yeah, yep, brackets. And if you want to get really crazy with it, you can highlight bracketed text and highlight it like yellow or red or green or whatever you want to do.
Oh, yeah, you can easily make a script for that. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
All right, so something else that I absolutely love right here is you put the little like the 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, okay, here are the scenes that you're gonna encounter. I love things that make it easy to run adventures.
I always appreciate this when I'm running a pre-written adventure, of just like the outline of the adventure, so you know what to expect. So you're not just having to read it front to back to glean what's actually happening. Yeah.
Oh, big clue over in chat suggests that maybe the kids are the delinquent and they deserve to be trapped in the ethereal plane.
Yeah, the party has to decide if the kid.
You know what? I'm gonna hang that on the shelf and come back to that, because that's not.
Yeah, we're gonna put that off to the side and see where that leads.
Because I like the idea of sort of like an unsettling dark fairy tale, right? Like,
for sure, yeah.
Hence, like the original Grimm's tales, they're grim indeed, right?
Right, yeah, and it's all about cautionary tales. It's don't eat a house made out of candy, or a witch might put you in her oven. Yeah.
All right, so the party meets with somebody, a nobleman, and a concerned citizen. Okay, so I think when I go through these again, I'm going to go ahead and throw in some of the NPCs from the Galder's book.
Yes, absolutely. Please feel free. And I went through for the Galder's NPCs and just kind of did a cursory search and didn't see anything immediately that stuck out to me. So all of this is placeholder.
Yeah. We've talked about that.
Mhm.
Okay. So they're going to learn of the problem, and then they go there. So part one is just the introduction.
Yep.
They get the blah blah, and
Exactly.
then they go to the
they
forest.
get the quest. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then part two is into the woods. They go to the forest. They go and then they go into the Feywild, and they
Yeah.
find the Lady Spider hair, the
Yes.
night hag with the
And her
missing
missing
heartstone.
heartstone. Yep.
And this is what we talked about. So now the reason this is all happening is the kids took her powerful magic item, and that's what's giving the ability to shift and travel through planes.
Yep. And now they're using it. Yep.
Okay, and then they go to the ooze plane where they meet the first kid after they fight in the earth elemental. And then they navigate the ethereal plane at the edge of the forest to recover the missing children. So yes, nice and simple.
Yep.
You get the mission kind of. You get the second half of the mission. She tells you like the rest of the plot. You find the first kid, then you find the second kid.
Exactly. Yep. Pretty simple.
Okay. And so a lot of this right here is just sort of setting you up, right?
Yeah, it's almost like flavor text. It just kind of gives you the lay of the land.
And then down here, you say, okay, they might be just passing through the city. Yeah, this is just sort of describing what the town is.
Yep.
It's pretty just like, okay, generic, wherever you want it. And the only thing that's of significance is the forest.
Yeah, the city itself, it could be any city, but the thing that matters is the proximity to this forest. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a key little bit here that was sort of like kind of hooking the players, right? That lately more fake creatures are appearing. And that's just sort of in the background of this adventure.
Yep.
All right. And then so here they get the blah blah that the Twilight Force has been being worse. People don't come back, and then the kids went missing.
Yep.
Okay.
And this is I love when you're doling out expository info like this. Bullet points are great because especially for a DM, it's like, you can have this conversation with this NPC be anything, but these are the 4 things you got to remember to dole out to the players, and having them be bullet points immediately clues you into those being important that need to be sort of gotten across.
Okay, so this whole first scene is really not going to take all that long at the table, right? Like this is all just exposition.
Yep.
So this is maybe 10 minutes of our adventure, unless the players go crazy, want to explore the town, but
which can
you would
happen.
expect them not to do that in a one shot.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to be like, well, I want to go shopping if you've explained that, hey, this is a single 4-hour session. So,
okay. And then into the woods. This is where the adventure really starts.
Yep.
I love how you just say, yeah, we'll give you anything you want. Boom.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Because, that the adventures are going to be like, if they need anything, they're going to say so. And it's just completely up to the GM whether or not they're going to dole stuff out. So.
Okay, so this is something that when I'm like reading adventures that I always look for, right? What's the first time the players actually get to roll a die?
Mm-hmm.
And so you go into the woods and you get some, more flavor text. And then you have sort of almost a random encounter, but more like a random spookiness.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of roll tables, especially if it's potentially a part of the adventure that could be lengthened if they wanted it to be. So if you wanted to turn the initial sort of journey through the Twilight Forest into more of a travel montage or a skill challenge, there's this table here that you can roll on to just find weird stuff that will clue the player characters into kind of the otherworldly nature of the Twilight Forest.
Okay. And then so finally we get to the players doing something. They get to make ability checks to see if they can traverse the woods. And if they fail, they get fatigued, which is one of the new conditions. It's an alternative to exhausted.
Yep.
And if they fail 2 checks, they find a trap.
Yes.
And this is going to be like a complex trap, like a Xanathar style.
Yep.
Like whole mini encounter thing.
Yep. A whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. And then we meet the hag. So real fast, I have some thoughts on this this first portion here.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Okay. I think maybe working backwards because we're right here. I think that if you're going to include the root snag trap, it probably should be there like no matter what.
No matter what,
And
yeah.
the amount of failures just puts them like in a worse position when they get there.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's if they fail the 2 checks, they actually have disadvantage on their check to try and avoid it. Sort of sets them up for failure because they're sort of stumbling through the woods unaware of where they are. Kind of
or maybe they walk into like a restricting vine or something, so the players start off restrained or something like that.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, so that's a good note there. Is just making the root snake trap something that is going to happen no matter what.
Okay. And so the other thing is like up until that point where they're making the checks, all of this is just the DM pretty much talking to them.
Yep.
Which isn't necessarily good or bad. Like a smart DM would compress this all until like, maybe a 5-minute speech at most, right? But I think there's also could be some stumbling there. I think that people might want to look around the town for more clues or try to investigate the parents, the children's parents or something like that.
You could very easily put some persuasion checks, sort of gathering information stuff where you're able to, and again, a good place for a table. You could create a table of like information gathered around town and find out little random clues about the kids, their parents, the forest, things like that.
So the question is like, should we do that, right? Mm-hmm. Should we have this option to expand out the town, or should we, condense this and try to get them into the woods as soon as possible?
Yeah, I think that it's got to be one or the other, right? You have to provide tools to make it a full scene, or try to condense it down where you can they're starting in the woods as quickly as possible. And I think that's a call that we just kind of have to make based on sort of gut feeling at this point.
Okay, so because I would prefer that the PC start some action a little bit sooner than all the way down here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe something that could happen is we're hearing tales of people getting waylaid by strange fey creatures coming out of the forest. Maybe that's where we could start the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
You start the adventure outside of the town, them fighting off the creatures, and then all of this stuff gets condensed into like a box text, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not necessarily even a box text, but something along those lines. Okay, you fought off the fey creatures that were fighting the merchants, and then here's the Lord tells you, oh, this is common, and 2 children have gone missing.
Right.
Yada yada.
Yep. And then you start it with a little bit more excitement, action. There's a feeling of urgency to it. So I'm into that idea for sure.
And then maybe just make a note that if the PCs try to look around town, they don't find any more information, right? Yep. Like the Lord assures them this we've questioned everybody already.
Yep. This is what we got. Super simple. There's not really a need to go into town and question people. Totally into that.
Excellent. Okay. Cool. And so now we're getting into the juice of the adventure. So tell me about this Lady Spider Hair.
Okay.
It's awesome name, by the way. I love it. That's super creepy.
Yeah. So Lady Spider Hair, she's a night hag. She lives in this forest, Twilight Forest. And she's covered in a cloak made of spider webs. And so she has spiders that are just crawling all over her. And the scene I'm imagining is you're walking into this clearing, and the clearing itself is sort of like draped with these webs. And you see spiders all over the place. Just this very creepy kind of sort of feel to it. And Lady Spider Hair, like most hags, is, she's a monster. She's a fiend, but she's also opportunistic, and she knows that adventurers are typically very good for doing these sorts of menial tasks. And so recently her heartstone was stolen by a couple of mischievous children, which is very fairy tale-esque. And she asked the adventurers for help. So she also explains to them at this point, if the adventurers haven't clued into the fact that they phased into the Feywild as they've traveled through the woods, Lady Spiderhair lets them know you're not even on the material plane anymore. You're in the Feywild. And she explains that the Twilight Forest itself is kind of this planar ley line where all of these planes are kind of crisscrossing over each other. And so it's very easy to get lost and travel between the planes. And that was something, again, that was important for the adventure. It's something that was promised on the Kickstarter. So it had to be kind of a central sort of point of that. I love that kind of stuff anyway. So that was super easy to work in there. And she also explained to the adventurers that, the children have this really powerful relic, but they can't possibly comprehend what it's capable of. And so they have gotten themselves lost, who knows where. And she basically points the adventurers down this path and says, they went that way. And that way is a gate, a tunnel into the elemental plane of ooze, quasi-elemental plane of ooze.
All right. So do we know how exactly the kids got the Heartstone, or was she playing with them, or?
So she mentions to them that the Fey creatures essentially aided the kids in doing this, and the Fey creatures kind of goaded the kids into doing it. And so this idea that these Fey that live in this forest are tricksters, are mischievous, playing pranks, would love to have a couple kids steal this Night Hag's Heartstone, especially because this Night Hag is probably somebody that they do not get along with. And so that's what Spiderhair says, that they were aided by Fey tricksters. The children played an awful prank and stole her precious Heartstone.
Okay. All right, so Matt, so our first encounter up here, and now you have sort of a challenge. If it's going to be with these Fey creatures that are sort of like harassing caravans, it has to be like a really mischievous scene.
Yes, yeah.
Like we have to show that these are sort of, I'm trying to think of a better word than mischievous.
Just like jerks, pranksters, just like cruel to be cruel for cruelty's sake. Sort of, they get enjoyment out of messing with people. Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe the thing that's coming to my head is like goblins throwing like barrels of like glitter. But
yeah, something ridiculous like that. I'm sure we can come up with something like that.
Okay. So yeah, and so when the players hear the story about how the Fey creatures aided the children in stealing her thing, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. They're total kleptos."
Yeah, exactly. We tangled with these guys outside the forest. They're jerks. We know exactly what's going on. Yeah, totally.
They're trying to steal all of our hats. One was obsessed with wearing like 5 hats at a time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep, totally. Stuff like that.
Okay. And then so we go into the stuck in the mud. So Lady Spiderhair, she points her finger off, and the players follow the trail.
Yes.
And eventually it leads them somewhere else, into a woodland bog.
Yeah. Yep, they basically travel through this path, and much like them phasing into the Feywild, they eventually gradually cross from the Feywild into between the elemental planes of earth and water, where in between those there is a quasi-elemental plane of ooze, which is just a dimension of mud. It just sucks. And they find themselves in here, again, an opportunity for us to use one of those cool environment templates from Galder. So we get to use the carnivorous swamp template, which is great. And then they have to fight an earth elemental while also trying to track a couple of children through mud, which is not easy to do.
So that's something that I kind of like. If you make a survival check, you see the tracks with the mud. If you get higher, you want to know that there's 2 separate ones.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a basic check. You know that, okay, someone came through here, but if you roll really well, you're like, there's 2 creatures. They were very small and they were moving quickly. It's like, okay, cool. I got a little bit more information there.
Oh, going back about the initial encounter and goblins throwing glitter, Rosanna says you could reflavor a fairy fire to be something like that.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good idea. Really, really good idea.
Okay. And so eventually, after the characters fight the earth elemental that was disrupting them when they're tracking, they hear something. They hear muffled sobbing, and they follow it.
Yep, and that's
and then they come across the girl.
Yep.
And then what she does is she gives them the other half of the plot, right?
Yep, exactly. She basically fills in all of the remaining holes, and this is the point where you kind of get the whole picture of what's happening.
So she is frightened of Lady Spiderhair and hesitates to speak any more of her. So is there a reason for that?
I think just the fact that Lady Spiderhair is very creepy and like sort of scary. And there's also a moment later on in the adventure where Lady Spiderhair threatens to eat these kids for the trick that they've played on her. And so I would think that she would probably just be frightened of her for that. But I think that maybe what I want to get across here, and it's probably going to require a little bit more writing, is just the idea that they played this prank all in fun, but then it got very serious when Lady Spiderhair started kind of pursuing them through the woods to try to get her Heartstone back. And it was like, okay, she's not fun like the fey creatures are. Like, she's a monster and she's chasing after us through the woods, which would be just terrifying. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, and that's something else. They use their sometimes the Fae use their magic to make the children's imaginings come to life. So scrolling back up onto this table, do we have anything like that? Like stacks of like children's toys?
We don't. That's a really good way to foreshadow what's going on here. So I'm actually going to leave a comment right here. Say, include signs of the children and their imaginations coming to life thanks to the Fae magic. Because that's a great way to foreshadow that aspect of the adventure.
Okay. So something that is kind of off to me about this section, right, is essentially from the player's point of view, is they're going to walk into this mud realm, and the only thing they have to do is try to follow some tracks. There's not anything else. And if they don't make that check, then they just have to sit around.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of sort of openings there for other opportunities. So there's definitely some other things that could happen here.
Yeah, and the same thing with like after the encounter, like the way it's written is they have to make this check or else the adventure sort of comes to an end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So the way and this is these are like what are they? Dead end skill checks. Dead end skill checks where it's like you can't have a skill check that basically is required. A skill check has to offer some sort of benefit or some sort of drawback if you fail, but it should never be you have to do this to move on to the next part of the adventure. So that is something that needs to be fine-tuned in the next draft here, is just making sure that if there's some sort of skill challenge, if there's a mechanic at play, that it's not a dead end skill check.
Yeah, so maybe it's easy to track her through the mud, like it's obvious. But passing high would give you like an advantage of some sort. Maybe you could sense the earth elemental ahead of time.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one way of doing it.
Yep, and we can absolutely loop back to that and just make it feel. It'll be easy to kind of dial that in a little bit better.
Okay, and so one earth elemental, and then eventually they'll find the girl after that.
Yep.
Yeah, so that could be a little point right there. Like it's easy to follow her path so far, and then an earth elemental erupts and destroys the tracks.
Yeah,
and then the characters
covers
have to do
up
X,
the tracks.
Y, Z.
Yep, that's a great idea. Yep, because the earth element, and it specifies the earth elemental uses its earth glide ability to go under the mud and move around, and so it would absolutely be just completely covering up these tracks that are in the path. So yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and then maybe the distant muffled sobbing would be like a second option. Like, okay, you can re-pick up the trail, or you can listen for it.
Yep. They eventually, totally.
Okay, cool. All right, and then they give him the rest of the plot, yada yada, and then you go onto the ghost walking. She will lead the characters down the path that Antwerp took, but she's unsure of where he's disappeared to.
Yeah, and this is an interesting thing is that the Heartstone is broken. It broke in half while they were escaping. And so she has one half and Antwerp has the other one. And it's very clear that it still works, but not really, not perfectly. And so Antwerp is stuck in the ethereal with this sort of malfunctioning Heartstone.
You know what you should do with that? You should make that one of the cursed items.
Broken Heartstone.
Yeah, a broken Heartstone.
Let me make a note of that.
So there's also going to be a section of cursed items in the book. So we're thinking of ways to throw them into the adventures.
Yep. Perfect.
All right. So you go down there and you reveal a solitary set of prints through the muck. So those torn bits of Antwerp's bright red scarf. Tracks suddenly stop. At this point, astute adventurers might realize he uses Heartstone to face into the ethereal plane. Yes, I like rewarding player knowledge.
Yes.
And I like this. You have a little like spooky rhyme going in there.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was just writing this and I was in kind of a weird mood and I was like, I got to give some sort of clue here for if they can't figure out what's going on. And I'm like, what if because will-o-wisps are mentioned in the outline. And I was like, I haven't used will-o-wisps yet. And I was like, what if a will-o-wisp just comes bobbing by and it's just like singing this song about what happened to the kid that ran through? Like, that's perfect.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think it fits this whole theme of like, trickster spirits and a haunted fairy tale.
Yep.
I love it. And if they attacked, even more of them appears, which is going to be...
Yeah, exactly. You get wrecked by a bunch of will-o-wisps if you try and attack them.
I think, they're actually pretty nasty monsters.
They are. Yeah.
Okay. So after that, they're going to go to the ethereal plane with the Heartstone. So how's this part work?
So basically the stone operates like the etherealness spell, except that they can't go back to the material plane as they can with the etherealness spell until they find the other half of it and put it together. And then it
one-way street.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So once they go in, they can't come back out until they find Antwerp.
Okay. Oh, so I guess they can't figure it out from the clue. I guess the girl might be able to hint them at them too. You have an NPC there
to kind of
give them the final clue.
Yep,
excellent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then so when they get there, so here this is kind of confused me. He's covered with spider webs. Now, are these going to be from Lady Spiderhair, or are these just random spider webs?
So when I initially wrote this encounter, the idea was that it was going to be the same clearing that Lady Spiderhair is in, but in the ethereal plane.
Oh,
so the phase spiders are basically living in the same clearing, but in the ethereal plane. So I definitely didn't get that across because I was writing in a flurry, but that's the idea, is that they basically loop their way back around and come back to Lady Spiderhair's clearing, but now they're in the ethereal plane. They're in this kind of mirrored plane, and the phase spiders are hanging out in there and have Antwerp in the plane. So, and Lady Spiderhair would know that if she had her Heartstone, but she doesn't. She doesn't know that he's there.
Okay. So can I make a little suggestion here?
Yes, absolutely.
So let's circle back to the first encounter where you meet Lady Spiderhair, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should foreshadow those spiders there, like seeing them like up in the trees or like blinking in and out of existence.
Yeah. Yep.
And we should hear the little kid's voice. Like he should be like sitting there like crying.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good idea. So I will I'll make a note of that here. Work in phase spiders and Antwerp. Got it.
Awesome. Okay, and then so when they're in this and so what happens here? After they find the boy, but there's spiders protecting him, you have to fight off the spiders.
Yep, fight off the phase spiders, which they're really cool. They can phase in and out of existence, so they can blip back to the material plane, come back to the ethereal, just at will. They fight the phase spiders. They can free Antwerp, who is very relieved and gives up his half of the Heartstone with little hesitation. My thinking is that this kid was really excited to have this, but now he got trapped in another dimension and was almost eaten by these interdimensional giant spiders. And so he's like, take it. I don't want it anymore. Like, this has just caused way too much trouble. And there's an interesting thing here. The party has the kids, they have the stone, they could just leave. And that was something I realized when I was typing, is I was like, there's no incentive for them to go back and talk to Lady Night or Lady Spiderhair unless they want to. And so I had to work in this thing where it was like, if they leave the woods with the Heartstone and don't go back to Lady Spiderhair, she will just hunt them to the ends of the earth and appear in their nightmares until they give it back to her.
Well, maybe we're giving the party too much credit. So let's assume that this clearing where Antwerp is the same clearing where the players initially meet her, and they just join the stone back immediately, and they'll just pop back to the material plane, and she'll be there waiting for them. And
standing
the
right there. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And night hags are what challenge were in there? Like 9?
They are a CR5. A night hag is a CR5.
Okay. And so a night hag with 2 more face spiders would definitely be
a
good,
pretty daunting challenge for a 5th level party. Yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah. So this so the encounter that's in the ethereal plane could be not necessarily don't necessarily have to kill the spiders. You have to get to Antwerp though to get the Heartstone.
They just have to get to Antwerp and get the pieces back together. Yep, exactly.
Oh, so it's kind of like a fake ending, right? Because then I think we did it, and then bum, we forgot about me.
Shoot, yeah. They're like, hang on, this clearing looks familiar.
Oh, this is cool. Okay, I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot.
And this is a perfect example of working an adventure around the lore and abilities of a monster. So like a night hag is a perfect example of a monster that has a real character and a real personality to them. And it's so easy to think about a whole adventure around them and the things that they can do and the different other monsters that they would be hanging out with. And I love that kind of stuff. Like monster-based adventures are probably my favorite. So
definitely. Oh man, I'm more of a locations-based adventure person. Like I like to make it like a really cool area and then sort of like populate it with stuff. But no, this is definitely a monster-based. You do go to a lot of different locations. This is cool.
It does have it's got the plains hopping aspect of it, which I think makes it a little bit more unique than a typical sort of monster of the week style adventure.
No, but this sort of centers all around this the spider hag. And I like how she tricks you. At first, she's acting like she's going to help you, and then at the very, very end, she's like, "Oh my gosh, she really was the traitor all along."
Yep. Yeah, she says.
Or not really the traitor. We just didn't think this all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. She says their souls smell scrumptious, and bad children must be punished. So, I mean, gross.
All right, and then we got some magic items.
Yes.
And the environmental templates and this stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. So the whimsical environment template, that would be for the Twilight Forest, the Feywild portion of the Twilight Forest, and then the Mischief Makers would be the Fey creatures that you would encounter there. So, and that would include the goblins sort of in that intro encounter.
Fantastic. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, so this all just kind of came together with the outline, and obviously there are some liberties taken, some changes made and stuff, because as you outline something, but as you get into the adventure writing, you kind of follow your gut a lot and go down different paths. And for me, a lot when I'm writing adventures, I like to think about like what I want as a DM and how I run games. And a perfect example of that is the strange sights table. I'm getting to that part of the adventure, and I'm like, if I was running this adventure and the PCs were traveling through the woods, I would want some sort of table or a list of sights and sounds and sensations that I could pull from to then use in my descriptions and break up the monotony of travel by using something like that. So that's exactly why that's there, is because I was like, I would use that. Like I need to put it in there because that's what I want in this adventure. That's how I would use it. So, following your instincts, your dungeon master instincts, serve you well in adventure writing for sure.
Good stuff. Well, our time is just about up. Thanks for hanging out. You want to plug your you want to plug your Kickstarter one more time?
Yes, I would love to. So again, we are we're about to hit 5,000. We're at 4,600 right now. We are kickstarting the Mecha Hack Mission Manual, which is our follow-up to the Mecha Hack, which was released in 2018. It's got a bunch of one-page missions. All of them are adventures, really, that fit on a single page that you can run. They're all intended to be one-shot sessions. There's new player options. There's new modules and equipment. There's a whole section with like modular rules that you can add into your game. Things like in Galder, the environment templates, the monster templates, those are like examples of things that we're including in the mission manual that sort of give you different options for running the game. And all of that is on Kickstarter. I believe the link is down in the description. And we're really excited about it. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for having me on, man. This has been great.
Yeah, it's great talking to you as always. All right, so everybody, this will be up on YouTube for the next 24 hours. After that, it's going to be on my $1 Patreon. Link again in the description. And if you have some thoughts on this adventure, be sure to let me know in the comments below.